Welcome to the Volpe Report podcast, the state's premier public affairs show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians. I'm your host, Chuck Volpe. Join us now as we speak to this week's guest.
The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is brought to you by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
Well, it's always a sad day as we hit this time of year every single year where we end our winter-spring season of the Volpe Report. 13 years of this show. It's been a labor of love, and I hope we've added something to the educational process of politics in Pennsylvania. It can be complicated and maddening at times. We try to bring you the people that make the decisions, as I said a long time ago on the first show 13 years ago, that affect your lives. We feel like we've done that this year, and especially this past season. We brought to you some of the leaders of this country in a major way and talk about affecting lives. No one more so than people like Mike Johnson, United States Speaker, Secretary of the Navy, Kenneth Braithwaite, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who was a top presidential prospect and may be again, our own very own United States Senator, Dave McCormick. In this media market, we have two prominent U.S. congressmen, Dan Muser and Rob Bresnahan. So with that as some background, we decided for our last show, which is this Sunday. After this Sunday, we will not be back until September, the Sunday after Labor Day. So we'll have the summer off. But we thought a compilation. We had such good guests that talking about such important things that it would be appropriate to have a compilation of the key moments and some of the highlights of those guests. So that will be our last show. We wish you all a wonderful, safe, happy summer with your families. Hopefully you'll get away to the seashore or to or places in the mountains or wherever you like to go. And I know we're going to blink, just like coming back to school, I say every year in September around Labor Day. The Volpe Report will be back with another great lineup of guests. As we head into an election season this coming November, that fall show, those shows will be important because it's going to decide the midterm elections and help decide the future direction of the country, as well as Pennsylvania. We have a governor's race here. So enjoy your summer. We'll see you in September.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial. The area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
First of all, Mr. Speaker, as I already said, and I want to say on air, very much appreciate you taking a minute out of your busy day. You're doing the Lord's work. I'm sure people have told you whatever they're paying is not enough. First question. Right now, conventional wisdom says that pretty much the Democrats will take the House because that's what always happens. They take the House in the midterms. They did it to Trump in 2018. And I was looking at some interesting polls the other day from CNN, no less. On my television, I'm saying the narrative you hear from the mainstream media is so one-sided. The Democrats, it's almost like a fait accompli. They're going to take the House. And then a pollster, put up these numbers. In 2006, which was the midterm in George W. Bush's second term, they were plus 28. Yep. And in 2018, during President Trump's first term, midterm, which the Democrats then took the House, they were almost plus 20. And now they're significantly underwater. So the mainstream media won't talk about it. So that's the first question. Can you explain that? But you've heard the same numbers?
Yes. Don't bet against the House Republicans. They do that every day. They have been since I was handed the gavel. It is true that we have to defy history to grow and keep the majority. Because it only happened twice in 90 years that a sitting president has picked up seats for his party in that first 2-year cycle. Brian Fitzpatrick, our other friend, congressman from Pennsylvania, I was in his district this morning, and he said, the summary is very simple. Angry people vote, and happy people generally don't. They take for granted. And so that's why that historic trend has always been true. It will not be true this year. Take it to the bank. There's a lot of factors that are very different than have ever been faced in a midterm before. I have a very boring 90-minute slideshow I could show you and your viewers, but I won't do that this morning. A quick summary is We have a great record to run on. We have delivered on our promises, promises made, promises kept. Right now, people are getting their biggest tax refunds they've ever had. Their paychecks are going up. No tax on tips, overtime, seniors on Social Security, all those things that help Pennsylvanians and help Americans. They look at the record and they know that we did what we said we were going to do. We secured the border. We returned American energy dominance. We cut regulations, cut spending. All these things are what are important to get the economy going again, and we've been doing that, delivering on those kitchen table issues, and that's going to be really important. Great record to run on. We have great candidates. I mean, we have incumbents like Rob Bresnahan. We're in his district right now, campaigning for him. Thanks for helping him. I mean, he represents northeastern Pennsylvania very well in Congress, and he's the kind of person you want doing that job. We got to work really hard to get him reelected, and we will, but he's one of those swing districts that are going to decide the fate of the country, and that's why we're working so hard. We got great candidates like him. We have a slight fundraising advantage over Democrats right now. Republicans over Democrats almost never happens. It hasn't happened in 10 years because people know the stakes are so high. The other big factors are we have President Trump. There's never been a second-term president that went out and campaigned like he was on the ballot as this one is, because in a real sense he is. I mean, his name's not there, but his policies and his administration are. Right. If we lost it, it would be over. They would impeach him. They would turn all the committees of Congress into investigative bodies. The subpoenas would be flying like they were for Eric Trump. We can't allow that to happen. And so he's all in. We're going to have different factors and different things like a midterm convention. We've never done that before. That'll happen in September right for early voting. So at the end of the day, I'll summarize it this way. This is what Newt Gingrich told me the other night. He said, Mike, this is not a contract with America election year. This is a contrast for America. And the contrast is Republican common sense versus crazy. And their party increasingly is really gone crazy. They're full open Marxists. They're for open borders, keeping dangerous criminal illegal aliens in the country, putting men back in ladies' locker rooms and girls' sports, and trans surgeries without parental consent. I mean, every issue they're on the wrong side of, and I think voters are going to take that into account.
The Speaker has taken time out of his busy schedule running the House of Representatives of America to come up and talk about how important these two are in this region, in the state, and the importance of Pennsylvania is to this country for them keeping the majority. They helped turn the few seats that gave the small margin you enjoy. So I just want to turn it over to Speaker about his two colleagues since he's here with us today.
Well, thank you for that. And these are not only two of the best members of Congress, they're two of my closest friends and confidants and men that I rely upon and trust. There are workhorses and there are show ponies. These are two of the workhorses. These guys get it done. And as the president says about both of these guys and said as recently as today, they're straight out of central casting, okay? Because they get the job done. They bring a lot of acumen, a lot of know-how to the table. They serve on the most important committees in Congress because we need their wisdom there. And they're getting it done for Pennsylvania. Northeast Pennsylvania is so well represented. Dan Muser could be in any office, I think, anywhere, but I'm grateful he continues to serve in the House. He's come back for another term, and he'll get reelected. And Rob Bresnahan is one of the top races, most contested seats in America, really top 5 race. And Democrats are spending huge amounts of money to try to kick him off of his pedestal here. It's not going to happen. He won and he flipped a blue seat to red last cycle in 2024, and we're going to hold it this time because he has delivered on his promises. His promises made, promises kept, and this is the guy you need back. So I'm delighted. I mean, the Speaker of the House, they want me to be in every district, but I'm going to be in Pennsylvania a lot because I'm telling you, this is not an overstatement. These guys know Pennsylvania will help decide the future of the country. It's going to come down to a handful of seats. And these are the ones we got to win.
It's good to have you in our Northeast and Central Pennsylvania media market. I sat here 13 years of this show, Governor, and I sat here in the dark days of 2020 when I watched our governor in Pennsylvania effectively destroy Pennsylvania. He shut down businesses. 4th and 5th generation family businesses were wiped out. Family members were not allowed to visit sick relatives in the hospital or be at their bedside as they were dying, or go to their funeral. Disgraceful on 1,000 different fronts. You were a beacon of freedom at a time of darkness. So when you decided to run for president, I talked to Nick Sinatra. I said, sign me up for this man. And of course, I was at Four Seasons. I was at Park City. And I lastly will say I had the honor of speaking for you about 30 miles east of Des Moines on minus 38 wind chills on that January night. So it's been nothing but an honor and privilege to support your endeavors as governor of Florida and as president. And again, thank you for doing me the honor of being on the show.
No, we appreciate it. And honestly, what you've said, particularly about those dark days of COVID, because the world really went off its rocker And, it's one thing in those early days, not knowing what you're dealing with, to exercise some caution. But that quickly turned into a perpetual lockdown being advocated by people like Dr. Fauci. They just didn't want kids in school at all. Like what? You weren't allowed to earn a living. You had to wear a mask everywhere. There was no scientific basis for it, but the narrative, that was the most powerful narrative that I've dealt with in politics. It was all consuming. Everything we did to buck that, even though it was the right decision, was tremendously unpopular because it got massive negative media, not just in Florida, nationally and internationally, because we were cutting against the narrative. And I think what it was is these people didn't want a test case like Florida to show that what they were advocating ultimately wasn't going to be effective. And so we were able to do that. And, our state, I can list, we're number one economy 3 years in a row, number one education, freedom, higher ed, all these different things. And that involves a lot of policy. And you mentioned some of the policy, but the reason why we've shot the way we have is because we went hard against the grain in COVID. We took a stand. A lot of people thought I was ruining my governorship and wouldn't be able to get reelected because they weren't popular at the time. But I stood and I said, listen, this is when people need me. These people's businesses, the kids need to be in school. They're playing sports. People need to earn a living. If I can't stand up for that, even if it's not easy for me, then I'm not a leader, and I've got to be willing to lead in this situation. And so now in Florida, people will look back. No one will admit they opposed me on forcing schools to remain open or any of this other stuff. They all kind of forget that they were opposed, but many people were opposed, and not just Democrats and media, many of the Republicans as well.
Well, I'm going to take this excerpt from this show after it airs on Fox, Governor, and send it to Governor Josh Shapiro, and maybe he just came out with a budget. First of all, last year's budget just got approved. We have a June 30th deadline for Pennsylvania's budget. It just got approved, I think, in November. And 2 months later, he gave his budget address for the next fiscal year. It's already up like $6 billion more. So, and of course, he's going to fund it with rainy day money. I don't know. You wouldn't be familiar with that. The money they got from COVID, from his Democratic friend, Joe Biden, they're going to put that money to plug the hole in the budget. You can't make it up.
Well, I can tell you it's a big difference between what we've done in Florida. So when I became governor until now, we've almost quadrupled the state's rainy day fund. We've never taken a penny out of the rainy day fund. And then Florida's been a state, we're not as old as Pennsylvania, 181 years. If you take all the debt that's been accumulated in Florida over that 181-year period, just in my tenure as governor, we've retired more than half of it. Wow. So we now have the lowest per capita state debt in the United States, and we continue to run these surpluses. But it just shows you're rewarded from treating taxpayers with respect. You're rewarded by spending conservatively. It has a positive impact. As we've cut taxes, as we've been smart with spending, our economy's grown. When I became governor, our economy in Florida was about $1.1 trillion. It's now almost $1.9 trillion. That's a 70+% increase in a matter of 7 years. So, and it's a virtuous cycle. What I think New York and Illinois and Cal, they're in a vicious cycle. They have a hole. They try to raise taxes. They try to choke businesses. That causes their economy and the economic base to shrink. So the hole gets bigger, and they go back to the well and do it again. Rinse and repeat, and they can never square the circle. And we're showing the opposite is what actually works.
Well, first question, boots on the ground in Iran. So, and then I'm going to talk about the Strait of Hormuz with you after that. So first, boots on the ground in Iran. You think that's the only way to dislodge this and create some finish line for America?
If our objective is to seize the enriched uranium, yes, Chuck, but I don't think America has the stomach for that. So my gut tells me the president, right, is trying to get beyond this to a point where it's not going to be front page news, that this afterthought of a war in Iran, it just basically, glide slopes out to not the conflict it is today. We slowly pull back from our blockade. They open up the straits, and we're back to the way it was, pre-war. That's what I think is going to happen. Again, because I don't believe America has the stomach. to begin to take casualties for something that the average American doesn't fully understand. It's not about the price of oil at the pump. It's not about the economic impact. I mean, as you and I well know, I mean, just because of oil in the Middle East, there's all kinds of other commodities coming out of the Persian Gulf that are used by, our farmers for fertilizer or petrochemical companies for other things that we use day to day. So the impact on the nation's economy is great. And if anything, the Iranians now know what it is that they have as far as a lever to shut those straits down. I think the big part of the negotiation going forward is to ensure that the strait stays open, understanding, what could happen to Iran if they didn't. But Iran's got the stomach to just wait this out. They don't have the kind of economic pressures the rest of us do. And they don't have to worry about, any kind of protests from within, because to your point, they would just put those protests down. Life is not of value in Iran as the life is of value in America. That's the bottom line. And the Iranian theocrats, only 20%, Chuck. I was explaining to this recently on CNN that, the way that this comes about is you have 20% that are committed, right, to the radical Islamic viewpoint, right? They support the regime. You have 20% that are committed, that stand in opposition to it and want democracy and freedom. It's the 60% in the middle, right, that are just the average people getting up every day that want to go to work. They want to live in a peaceful environment. They want to put food on the table, provide a roof over their head for their families. Those are the ones that finally had enough back in January. Right. And those were the ones that, began what we have now seen unfold in this war.
Why not just take the Strait of Hormuz and open it? We've effectively blockaded their blockade of the Strait. So, what I know they have mines and other things. Our Navy can't just effectively take control of the Strait so that shipping could proceed. That's the question. Why don't we do that, or why can't we do that?
Well, we could, right? I've said this repeatedly over the last month. I mean, we could run the Strait. We could take the Strait. But again, it's the commitment that would be required by the forces of both the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps. Because remember, the Navy Marine Corps team is one fight. So they are there in tandem together, prepared to do just that. The problem with that is you touched on the one thing, right? So a mine is literally World War I technology. I can put those mines either floating or I can put them tethered to the bottom of the strait. And something that's worth thousands of dollars could take something out that's worth billions of dollars. And even though we have the ability to sweep the strait and eliminate the mines, then we have to put up with the small fast boats coming at us that have everything from anti-ship missiles to smaller close-in weapons that could create havoc. And if you send enough of those at me, right, it's like swatting mosquitoes, up at Lake Wallenpaupack in the summer. I mean, you're not going to get them all, Chuck, and some of them are going to get you. Yeah. And therefore, you just lost the $1 billion warship and all the sailors and Marines that are aboard it. Then the third thing is you have anti-ship missiles that our friends, the Chinese, have provided the Iranians that can stand off a long distance from the strait. Remember, the strait's 21 miles across. Of the 21 miles, only 2 miles of that are the actual navigable channel. So it's very easy for me to put a target on that spot and anything that comes through there with an anti-ship missile that can stand off up to 1,000 kilometers. So if I take a compass and I draw a circle from the strait into Iran, that gives the Iranian military a wide range to put any one of these mobile missile platforms, target that strait from a long distance away, and to actually secure that strait, I'd have to put enough, again, we're back to where we were before, boots on the ground to push all the way into Iran to secure all those potential targeting positions to that targeted site in the strait. That's what makes it an area of immense challenge to the U.S. Navy. We could do it, absolutely. We have the firepower. We have the fortitude to do it. We have the professional sailors and Marines at sea ready to do it right now. It's just that, do we want to take the risk and lose potentially the individuals and the ships that we could lose?
So let's start with a $14 billion investment by Nippon Steel, Japan, into U.S. Steel. Savings, again, my memory isn't what it used to be, but so I'll get it. I might as well get it right. 11,000 jobs saved. 14,000 more nationally saved. 5,000 construction jobs in the Mon Valley alone. So, obviously you can take a bow. I mean, how's that going? And is that manifesting what you hoped it would?
Yeah. Thanks for bringing those things up. I would say the annual letter was meant to do something that I don't think many politicians do, but CEOs do, as you know, Chuck, which is you gotta tell your shareholders how you did. So what I wanted to try to do was create accountability on myself, but also transparency. And so I had made a bunch of promises during the campaign, and that was my attempt to do it. And I never want to have a show with you without saying the second thing, which I know you know, but for your listeners, and I feel honored to do it. I appreciate the opportunity. I feel really privileged to be able to represent Pennsylvania. So I'm working hard to do a good job, and way to do that's the accountability. I talk about the big five in the letter, and I don't want to steal any of your thunder here.
No, please. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah, the big five are huge five big things that happen that any one of them, if any one of them were to happen in a big year, in any year, you would say, wow, 5 big things happened last year. The first is Nippon. The U.S. Steel was going to shut down the plant in the Mon Valley. So this not only saved those jobs, they're also Nippon committed to a new mill in the Mon Valley and next generation steel. So this sort of saved domestic steelmaking in many ways. It was a huge deal for Pittsburgh. And frankly, President Trump had been opposed to the deal. And I, along with Dan Muser and others, sat down with the president. And I think we were able to convince him that this was in the best interest. It's a huge thing for Pennsylvania. And, it's a great day. The second big announcement was not far from you, Chuck, in Berwick.
Right.
And Governor Shapiro and I came together and announced that Amazon Web Services, we're going to do a $20 billion of investment in data centers in Pennsylvania. And, I've always said this AI revolution's coming. We can either be the tail or the dog. I think we should lead it and manage this in a way where we make sure electricity prices stay low. I know there's some concerns in local communities. This is a driver of economic growth. This is about jobs. So that creates thousands of jobs. One of those is going to be around Berwick. One's going to be in Bucks County, 2 big data center complexes. The third big announcement was the Energy and Innovation Summit. You said $92 billion. The president came to Pittsburgh. The governor came. We had CEOs from energy, investing, from a big tech. We had outside global investors from Singapore and Abu Dhabi. I mean, it was incredible. And they committed to $50 billion of energy infrastructure, $40 billion of data centers. The fourth one's Hanwha. The South Korean trade minister was in here to speak with me today. $5 billion of new investment in the Philadelphia shipyard. We're going to go from 1 ship a year to 20. This is 5,000 new jobs, welders, pipe fitters, steam fitters. These are incredible jobs that will last for generations, the kind of jobs that we need in next generation technology. And then fifth, unbelievably, a couple of months ago, Westinghouse, the president was there visiting. Japan announced they were going to buy $80 billion worth of nuclear reactors from Westinghouse, much of that manufactured in Western Pennsylvania, in the next 10 years. Those 5 things alone create more than 100,000 jobs, economic growth and opportunity. This is just the beginning, Chuck. If we lean in and make sure Pennsylvania is the place that benefits from the reshoring, the economic opportunity, the skilled labor, the capital we have, the energy, it's going to be a great, brilliant chapter for Pennsylvania.
So let's turn our attention. That's on me. I jumped to a line item in the budget address, an issue. Now let's look at the whole thing as a whole. It went up $5.3 billion. It's up to 53 and change billion is what that budget now is. So the money is coming 2/3 to maybe even 70% of that money to plug the hole in the budget, and the increase is coming from the rainy day fund.
So this budget year that we're in now, passed a budget for $50.1 billion, basically wiped through the entire surplus and then said, oh, we passed a balanced budget. Well, guess what? That's not my definition of a balanced budget. So we're spending in 3 years since Shapiro's been in office, $9 billion more than when he first came in. And that's a 25% increase, and it's fiscally irresponsible and it's unsustainable. And so the budget address, the $53.3 billion, yes, we blow through 4.6 billion of the rainy day fund, and that's if you count the $1 billion of revenue that we don't have yet, and that's on recreational marijuana and games of skill. So if we don't have that, it'll be closer to $6 billion. And again, blowing through the rainy day fund, which you should never, ever use a rainy day fund to plug a budget hole. When I first took office, we had enough money in the rainy day fund to run the Commonwealth for less than 48 hours. And now we're at about 15%, which is where we should be. And again, it's just fiscally irresponsible. And just like we expect families to live within their means, the state should be doing the same thing. Because you're talking 53.3 billion. We only brought in revenues a little over 46 billion this past year.
This past week, FBI Director Kash Patel came to the Lehigh Valley, and it was an event, if you will, a panel roundtable hosted by United States Senator Dave McCormick. He's the one that brought the parties together. And somehow I found my way there at the invitation of Dave McCormick, concerned citizen Chuck Volpe. But nonetheless, talk a little bit about your role in the scourge of fentanyl that Kash Patel talks so much about. And he needs your office's help as much as the Federal Bureau of Investigation. So go ahead.
No, absolutely. I mean, that's a great introduction, and I'm grateful that Senator McCormick set that up. It was a great day. It gave us an opportunity to highlight the work that we're doing, but it also gave us an opportunity, really more importantly, to listen to the stories from parents who've lost their children to fentanyl overdoses. And that was just unbelievably heartbreaking. So a couple things. The first part of this is we must do everything we can to decrease both the demand and the supply of fentanyl. And on the demand side, that obviously is working with kids and children and anyone that's addicted to keep them from continuing to use. Hopefully they go into recovery, keep kids from turning to it in the first place. That's really important. Equally, if not more important, is the supply. And we heard from Director Patel about the work that the FBI has done working with people overseas to mitigate the amount of precursor chemicals that are being sent here. And that's how they make fentanyl. That's been tremendously successful. We're grateful for it. But that really brings us down to the fight that's happening every day on the streets of Pennsylvania. And that work is being done collaboratively between the FBI, the Attorney General's office, the Pennsylvania State Police, all the local police departments, the DEA, our other federal partners, and we are all working together to achieve that goal. And I'm very proud to say that last year, the Office of Attorney General removed over 50 million doses of fentanyl from the streets here in Pennsylvania. And that goes from Philadelphia to Pittsburgh to Erie, all the way up to Northeast Pennsylvania and everywhere in between. And the only way that work can be done successfully is by working together as a team. We've talked many times about the fact that I was in the Navy, and the only way we could achieve our mission is by everybody rowing in the same direction. And that is what we have happening now, which is so important. I'm so proud of it. And I really want to thank you, Chuck, for highlighting, giving me the opportunity to highlight how proud I am of the work that's being done throughout law enforcement in Pennsylvania.
Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Volpe Report podcast. Be sure to visit our YouTube and Facebook pages for upcoming episodes. You can catch up on the Volpe Report podcast on your favorite podcast provider.